Please introduce yourself.
I'm Justin Goodman, and I'm the Vice President of Advocacy and Public Policy at the nonprofit taxpayer watchdog group, White Coat Waste Project. We work to cut taxpayer funding for animal testing, which wastes about $20 billion a year in the public's money on cruel, ineffective, and outdated animal tests.
Wow, that's amazing. $1 billion?
20 billion. That's
20
right.
billion.
$20
wow.
billion. The U.S. people don't realize this. You know, based on what I even see on my own social media, people are under the impression that you know, cosmetics companies maybe are the biggest problem when it comes to animal testing, but actually the federal government funds about 2/3 of all animal testing that happens in the United States, and we're paying the bill for it.
Well, that is not a good thing, and I'm so happy that you and White Coast Waste Project is looking into this and handling it and doing things. There's this Johnny Depp quote, and he says, "If you don't like seeing pictures of violence towards animals being posted, you need to help stop the violence, not the pictures." Now, I think that's so relevant because people do get triggered and they'll want to turn away. I mean, I know myself, sometimes it's hard. You don't want to see these pictures. You want to turn a blind eye. How do you balance giving people these sad, horrific facts in your tweets and such without them running away? Because the facts are pretty heartbreaking.
They are, and you know, thanks for bringing this up, because I think we're a little different than other groups that work on this issue. You know, we try not to always have a full frontal assault on the animal testing and expose people to the horrible abuse that they're being forced to pay for, because it is upsetting, and we want to motivate people to get more involved, not less involved. And if you show them images or other content that's too graphic, you might upset people to the point where they stop following your account and they just shut down because it's so traumatic to see some of these things. Like, you know, when I first learned about a lot of what the government's doing to animals, like, you know, injecting latex into puppies' hearts and giving them heart attacks, you know, your first instinct is to say, oh, I'm going to stop reading right here because this is too upsetting.
I mean, yeah, even hearing that is upsetting. That hurts my heart, even just to hear you say it.
Yeah, so we try to balance that. And, you know, for the first time in history in the United States, a majority of the public opposes animal testing. And we've closed the partisan divide on that issue significantly over the last 5 or so years. And we have a growing majority now of people who want to see animal testing stopped. So hearts and minds are already in the right place. We don't have to keep showing people horrible images. But what we do need to do is give people the tools that they need to help stop this waste and abuse.
What would you say, you touched on it a little bit, what would you say that people can do to help? What can the average person do to help you?
You know, the nice thing about the issue we work on, which is taxpayer-funded animal testing, is that any American, anyone who pays taxes, has a say in how their money is spent. Everyone has a say, because this is our money and we want to hold the government accountable for how it's being spent. So, for example, one of our campaigns right now is to end experiments on cats at the Department of Veterans Affairs, which has spent about $9 million in the last few years doing horribly cruel, invasive, and incredibly wasteful experiments on cats and kittens at its facilities in Cleveland, Los Angeles, and Louisville. So we've launched a campaign to shut that down. We're working with Congress on that. And if people went to catstopation.org, that's exactly like it sounds, constipation, but with cat at the front. So catstopation.org, and I'll explain why we use that name. Catstopation.org, people can send a letter directly to members of Congress. So it'll go to your member in the House of Representatives and your 2 senators, telling them you want the government to cut funding for the VA's cat experiments. And the reason we use catstopation is because some of the experiments that the VA is doing involve doing experiments on cats where they have devices implanted in them to control their bladder and bowels, and then they have, in some cases, fake feces put into them, and then they're controlled with a remote device to make them, to try to treat constipation in cats.
That's a nightmare. That's
Yeah,
a
it's
nightmare.
horrible. And in some of the cats, they sever their spinal cords to cripple them. So again, not to get into too many of the horrendous details about what's happening, but cats to
But the
patients.
thing is, it does need to be exposed. On the one hand, it's really hard to hear, but it's like the Johnny Depp quote: "If you don't like hearing about the abuse of animals, don't stop the talk about it. Stop the abuse."
Absolutely. And the way we found out about this is we did an investigation using government databases, the Freedom of Information Act, and we obtained never before seen photos and videos of these experiments, released them to Congress and online and to the media, and have built a coalition of right now 30 members of the House of Representatives, bipartisan, have written to the VA asking them for accountability about this program and to shut it down, and are now working with those members and others to on next steps to make sure this stops.